What is up, good people? Welcome back to another video. In this one, I'll be taking you guys through a week of using the Axela for commuting from home till work. And yeah, let's start on a Monday. I left home at 6:18 in the AM and the fuel gauge was full. I filled it on Saturday. And typically, the first place that I find jam is here on Lolongo, just under this footbridge. Matatus love stopping over there, and it's not a designated stage, but you just know how Kenyan roads are. So here's where I typically first meet jam. As you can see here, typical matatus just being a nuisance a bit. And yeah, once I get through that, there wasn't much anything else that I encountered on the road, and I got to work at 7:06, and the consumption was 15 kilometers per liter. Now for the evening, the car stalled a bit, so it dropped from 15 down to 14.9. You can see that we had covered around 29.2 kilometers. So as we head home, I typically love using that South Sea route, and I also use the expressway from Airtel all the way to GM, and I exit at this Eastern Bypass exit because between GM and Airtel ever there's always jam, especially in the evenings. And this spot is also another place at JKIA, that junction where you have the road for going to Mlolongo. There's typically jam there. Now here again in Mlolongo as well, there's typically jam, and as you can see here, guys tend to be a bit rough when they are driving. And here I just go slow, considering we left the office at 4:43 and got home at 5:45. The consumption was 14.3 kilometers per liter, not the best. Tuesday, just the usual, leaving home in the morning. And here, once I start the car, I typically just reset the counter. And here it was 6:22, and you see it's picking yesterday's last figures, so I just reset that so that we can count afresh today. And it was a chilly day. As you can see, there was some moisture that had built up on the windscreen, and here there's usually a hill just before you get to the entrance of the expressway that I find jam sometimes, but I don't choose the expressways in the morning because I tend to leave early. So as long as I've left the house before 7, I'm usually good. I just know that here again under this footbridge where the matatus love doing what they love doing, you just have to keep to this right lane, and you can easily navigate that as long as you're early. Sometimes it does stretch out a bit if you're late. And yeah, stadium is also another place that I sometimes get jam. But here on Tuesday, things were good, and yeah, as you can see, we were stopped, but I was right over there in front. Upper hill, thankfully, there's no jam once you get through those roundabouts. And yeah, I got to work 29.2 kilometers again. We got to work at 7-Eleven, and you see now the consumption for today was 15.7, so that was a really good improvement. And in the evening for 17 p.m., leaving home, 15.7 kilometers per liter, just to see how things are. This is my usual route, just passing through Nairobi West, where my educational center is. Then I just go all the way now to South B and just join Mombasa Road. So I use Mbagathi Way from Upper Hill, and I find that that's the best road for me, just to avoid any roundabouts, because typically for roundabouts you just get jam. Now on this day, I passed by to do some errands in South B, and I was caught up in some jam. And here we are at Airtel, and as usual, from Airtel, I'll just enter the expressway here and go and exit it at the Eastern Bypass exit, which I'm exiting now. And you can see there are guys who live those sides of Utawala. This crazy jam at this time. You see it's stretching all the way till here. All these cars just trying to enter the road. just join that junction. So it's typically tricky for those guys. So again, this day I passed by somewhere, so 5:50, I still hadn't gotten home. So it was a bit of an exception. And I was behind this cool looking Mazda Axela. I think this is a 2008 model, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, the guy has done some modifications. Here, there were people just overlapping when you get to JKIA because Kenyans' impatience while driving is something most Kenyans do not have. So there tends just to be jam over here because people overlap and they just push the other people using the two lanes to just have to stop so that they can join after overlapping. And as you can see, lorries, they love using that rough road. I did see some guy with his personal car also using that road, and I'm like, dude, you don't love your car, but to each his own. Maybe he was in a hurry and he just needed to get where he needed to get to. So you see over here when guys now are joining after overlapping, it just causes this unnecessary jam. And a lot of accidents tend to happen here just because of people overlapping. And now this slip road that leads now to that is, I think you take it when you're going to Syokimau, and there's some other estates also behind that shopping mall. So on this day I got home at 6:33 p.m. 15 kilometers to the liter was the consumption, and as you can see, I had gone for 60 kilometers. On Wednesday, I didn't use the car because there were protests. So this is Thursday. So on Thursday, just leaving the house early as usual, and Thursday wasn't that cold at least. Remember, Tuesday was the coldest day. So here, just starting up the car, and as you can see, the revs typically they just don't go above 1,000. They're just below 1,000, and yeah, first thing is just resetting so that we can have a fresh counter. And here we are at 6:16 in the AM. See, it's still recording 15 kilometers to the liter, but I reset that, so now we can count for the day. And again, those jam there at Mlolongo because of the matatus, and you need to be careful sometimes because these trailers sometimes they just tend to switch lanes. So if you're driving on that route, be on the lookout and just be alert. There was some jam at Nyayo, but it was moving, and I typically don't go that Nyayo route. So what I mean is I stick to this left lane and I'll just slide to my left once I get to the Nyayo roundabout, and I use that back road behind Nyayo Stadium. Here there's somebody who hadn't fueled. It was unfortunate for them. Imagine in the morning, man. So I got to work at 7:07, and for that day the consumption was 15.6, which is good. And yeah, I can't complain. So leaving for home at 4:49 p.m. Here we just pick up from where we left off. There wasn't a lot of jam in South B, or rather South C, near the mosque. So I find that if I leave at around 4, that's when there's typically a lot of jam. And as long as I leave the office at around 4:15 to 4:30, things are good. Again, as usual, I'll use Southern Bypass from Airtel all the way to Eastern Bypass just because of the constant daily jam. And yeah, here I was just joining the bypass and exiting it at the Eastern Bypass, and it's around 160 bob, and I feel that's fair given the time that you save. Now the problem also sometimes here at Cabanas, you do tend to get a bit of slow moving traffic, and here there was a bit of jam, the usual place at JKIA, just joining now that road for going to Mlolongo, and the people who love overlapping. I think I've gotten used to the overlappers. Sometimes it gets so bad that you just have to use the expressway. If I get to Cabanas and I find that the jam has started there, I just use the expressway and exit the next exit after JKIA. And yeah, here I was just joining the interchange, heading home, and it's typically busy in the evenings, but I can't say that there's a lot of jam. It's just busy, and yeah, sometimes it just warrants you to drive slowly. And here for the day, the consumption wasn't that bad. And yeah, let's go now to the next day, which is on Friday. So Friday, as usual, just getting into the car. I slept in a bit on Friday because again, it's a Friday. So you can see here we were leaving at around 6:30. So it was a few minutes late, and yeah, just restarting now the counter so that we can actually get the reading for that day. Here, guys were doing the exercise early in the morning. I prefer doing mine in the evening. And here there was a truck that had broken down just before the expressway entry, causing a bit of jam. And here at Mlolongo, the matatus are ruthless in terms of overlapping, and they're also guys with their personal cars who are in quite a hurry. So I just advise anyone, it's good to wake up early. It just saves you a lot of headache, especially in Nairobi. And as you can see here, the matatu is just causing the jam, and you just have to find a way to stick to your right lane. Here again, I was heading to Nyayo, and this stage for matatus, telling you, it's so annoying, and there are even people who love overlapping here. Anyway, I just don't like overlappers because I feel that they put everyone's lives in danger, all your road users, because one mistake from them, and yeah, it just leads to a big mess. And here we're getting to work at 7:20 a.m. Consumption was 15.8 kilometers to the liter. And in the evening, as I was going home, I just decided to check my coolant level, and it was okay. And also decided just to confirm my oil levels, just to make sure they were okay. Just given that I had serviced the car the week previously, and you never do, somebody can make a mistake. Maybe the mechanic might forget to, just tighten the oil filter, or yeah, you never know. So it's just best to check, and always try to park the same place so that in case of anything, I can always just identify a leak as fast as possible. So going home at 4:03 in the PM, and again, this is just from Bagadi Road, and here I'm just headed to join Nairobi West. And this roundabout there at T-Mall, sometimes you just need to be careful. And there was a bit of jam on Friday in South Sea, again because I left early, so that is to be expected. Using the expressway just to avoid that jam between the Airtel as well as GM, and just exiting at Eastern Bypass. And guys who don't have the ETC here in Kenya, like, why don't you guys have it? I feel that it's so convenient and it saves a lot of time, especially given that sometimes you find that the cash payment, it just has an issue. Here at at Mlolongo rather, things were bumper to bumper, and I got home at 6:20. The consumption wasn't that bad. You can see it was 15.3 kilometers to the liter, and this was on Saturday. So on Saturday, I went for just a short grocery run. It was just around 10 kilometers, and I came to notice that the short distances have the worst fuel economy. So here it was 10:46. So just resetting the 15.3 that we had on Friday, just to check what it will give us. And I was heading to the market that is at the river, so that's just 10 kilometers away, to and fro, like the total distance, so 5 going, 5 coming back. And it was a polite day, but matatus as usual, just stopping anywhere and everywhere, making our lives difficult. So here I was just going to join that road that leads to the other river market, and at least in the morning there wasn't a lot of jam. And this is how the market looks like. There are a lot of vendors, and you can get pretty much all the vegetables and fruits that you need for both business as well as for your own personal use. So I buy mine weekly just to ensure I have fresh things, and this is me going home. And again, this was a short trip, and you'll see that in terms of fuel economy, it was horrible. So yeah, I'd say that the average consumption for the week was around 15 kilometers to the liter, and the average distance covered per day is 60 kilometers. You can see here we are recording a figure of 11.9 for a 10.3 kilometer distance. So yeah, that is a full week with a Mazda. I do feel it's quite efficient. I don't know what you guys think. Just comment down below. And thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye for now.